So we'll start with what an ESOP is. And at its highest level, an ESOP, which stands for Employee Stock Ownership Plan, is simply a qualified defined contribution employee benefit plan. And it's qualified under RISA in the sense that the sponsoring company of an ESOP, as well as the selling shareholders and the participants themselves, are eligible for various tax benefits under the IRS code because these are qualified employee benefit plans. Much like a 401k or a pension, these qualified benefit plans offer tremendous benefits to the sponsors and the recipients. But in the case of an ESOP, there are two very unique differences when compared to the other qualified benefit plans. Firstly, an ESOP is designed to invest primarily in the stock of the sponsoring company. And so it is a vehicle for buying and acquiring the stock of the company that sponsors the ESOP. And then secondly, employees themselves don't use any of their own money to acquire shares in the ESOP. So this is a earned benefit for employees. They don't, unlike a 401k where they have to make pre-tax contributions, many employees cannot afford to do that. In the case of an ESOP, all employees in the company who are qualified are eligible to receive grants of shares over time, tying them to the business. ESOPs were created decades ago. They are broadly supported by both the left and the right in Congress for various different reasons. And today, there are more than 7,000 ESOP companies in the US today, representing over 14 million employee owners. And then a leverage ESOP, which is the structure we're talking about today, is simply an ESOP that has obtained financing, typically from a bank and from the selling shareholders, to purchase the shares from the shareholders themselves. We wanted to discuss today some unique benefits of an ESOP that are very, very meaningful today when we are operating in a climate of ambiguity. There's been a lot of ambiguity due to policy decisions the administration is making, and this has caused a tremendous amount of closing risk for traditional transactions. So to the extent that you're in the world today trying to market a business, trying to prepare an exit plan, and you want to sell the business and find a buyer, those transactions most certainly are happening, but they are becoming more difficult to execute because uncertainty is making closing risk higher, and it's very challenging for buyers of businesses to take a decision to actually close the transaction when there's that much ambiguity. The thing about an ESOP, which is kind of unique, is rather than going out there and finding a buyer for your business, with an ESOP, you create a buyer. The buyer is a trust that the company sets up with the beneficiaries being the current and future employees of the business. And then that trust becomes the buyer of the business in a leverage buyout. And so when doing an ESOP transaction or structuring one of these transactions today, there isn't the need to go out and find a buyer, identify a buyer, and go through the process of extreme due diligence and an adversarial negotiation. You're essentially structuring the creation of a buyer for your business, and you're brokering the sale of that business to that buyer in a leverage buyout. And what that does is it makes the closing risk very, very low because the sellers are controlling pretty much everything. And then ultimately, the other benefit, and we'll talk a little about this as we go through the presentation, is that ESOPs are a medium to long-term exit strategy, but because of the way they're structured, they can maximize the value of the shares being sold and can deliver more wealth to selling shareholders than traditional sales, albeit over a longer period of time.